Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to briefly analyze Willian and Lacazette's impact in Arsenal's 3-1 win over Leicester City. When we break down the game and we do look at the board, we have Arsenal starting the game in a 4-2-3-1 and Leicester reverting into a 4-4-2. So mainly we're going to focus on how Arsenal were able to get into good positions due to Lacazette and Willian's movement. But first we'll break down how Arsenal did a very good job of ensuring Leicester City didn't create any quality chances besides their individual mistakes. So when we look at how Arsenal looked to press from the front, it was very simple. You had Lacazette and Smith Rowe stepping towards those center backs. You had Pepe and Willian closing down the fullbacks. And then Xhaka and Elneny would push forward to close down Tielemans and Ndidi. And from there, you'd have the back four closing down the wide players and the center backs dealing with Vardy and Iheanacho. And when Arsenal weren't employing that high press, you'd have Lacazette dealing with Soyuncu and Evans. Smith Rowe would drop deeper on Ndidi, and then you'd have Xhaka stepping to Tielemans with Elneny monitoring the movement of Iheanacho, who was dropping off deeper to attempt to link play with his teammates. But when we focus on how Arsenal broke down this Leicester City side, there was no real significant shift in how they looked to attack. When we look at how they broke down Leicester's two banks of four, we often saw Xhaka dropping off deeper to the right of Marty to pick up the ball. If Xhaka stays in that midfield zone, then Leicester would have a hexagonal shape around that midfield to ensure that they couldn't get possession. So Xhaka would drop off deeper to form a back three and create that 3v2 advantage, forcing Vardy or Iheanacho to shift across to provide cover. And if they didn't, then he was able to push forward as Willian dropped off deeper to pull out Castagna, and Tierney looked to bomb beyond Ricardo Pereira to get into advanced positions. Lacazette would drop off deeper as well. There were times where you saw him dropping off ahead of the midfield bank or looking to pull Evans out of position. But with Lacazette and Willian consistently swapping zones, the consistent theme here was getting Tierney in beyond that Leicester City backline. What we often saw from Willian was that to get away from Castagna, he was dropping off into that pocket of space between Tielemans and Ricardo Pereira, or into that pocket of space between Tielemans and Ndidi if Ricardo Pereira tracked the movement of Tierney. The reason why Willian would drop into these zones was that he would evade the pressure of Castagna, and when forward passes were played into Lacazette or Tierney, he would have the ability to run towards the Leicester City backline. If Willian wasn't shifting into those zones, he was often shifting laterally just ahead of Johnny Evans to receive the ball in that pocket of space, and that's where you would see Lacazette dropping off deeper ahead of Tielemans or ahead of that midfield bank to attempt to receive the ball. If Willian dropped ahead of Tielemans, you would see Lacazette shifting across to Castagna. But through this movement, what you're seeing is that Lacazette had the freedom to drop off into that midfield zone to link play with his teammates, and that made him a legitimate threat. And Willian was looking to get away from Castagna. If he could drop off deeper and pull him out of position, that creates more space for Tierney to break into. So as you could see, it was important for one of the Leicester City forwards to close down Xhaka when he pushed forward from that inside left position, because if Tielemans steps out, then that leaves space for Smith Rowe, Lacazette, or Willian to drop into. And if Tielemans holds his position, then Xhaka's free to step forward in towards that Leicester City half, and that's where combination plays could arise. Over on the right-hand side, we had Pepe holding the touchline and he was closed down by Thomas, and Pepe did enjoy that battle against the left back, with Barnes tracking the movement of Cedric. Smith Rowe attempted to shift laterally to create 3v2s down that right channel, but Soyuncu did a very good job of stepping forward to close down Smith Rowe, and that negated Arsenal's threat down the right-hand side. So as you could see, it was Arsenal's left-hand side that got them into several good positions, and it was Lacazette's ability to drop deeper, hold off the center backs, along with Willian's movement to create chances for the Gunners. Here you could see Xhaka just ahead of the halfway line with neither Tielemans nor Iheanacho applying pressure, while Lacazette drops towards the ball to pull away Ricardo Pereira, but focus on Willian, who initially dropped off Evans into the Ndidi Tielemans gap. Xhaka's pass into Lacazette results in him laying the ball off to Willian, who's unmarked in space between the lines beyond Ndidi and Tielemans, and Willian carries Lacazette's layoff beyond Ricardo Pereira and across Evans, which creates a gap between the Leicester center back, and Castagna as Tierney begins to make a run beyond the right wing back. Tierney receives Willian's defensive splitting pass in left half space, but at that moment there were no options available in the penalty area, and Castagna deserves credit for blocking the delivery. The other option for Willian here is that if he didn't want to drop away from Castagna into space in that midfield zone, he could shift over to the left-hand side where there wouldn't be Leicester City pressure on him and attempt an overload. Here we could see Cedric sliding the ball across Barnes for Willian free on the left touchline, with Ndidi shifting away from Elneny for cover. Also, look at Xhaka beyond Tielemans, who push forward to close down Marty. Willian carries the ball towards half, and when Ndidi steps to him, he locates Xhaka's forward run beyond Tielemans towards Leicester's half. Xhaka slides the ball wide to Tierney to place him in a 1v1, with acres of space to push forward to run at the Leicester City right back, and that allows Tierney to break towards the byline and slide the ball across Castagna and the center backs to place Pepe in a legitimate goal-scoring position, but Thomas's last-ditch intervention halts an attack started by Willian's movement. Another alternative for Arteta is to have Willian and Pepe tuck into narrow positions between the lines, have the fullbacks push forward, and then have that front three behind Lacazette combine in tight spaces. If we look to an example, we have Smith Rowe receiving the ball from Cedric ahead of the Leicester midfield bank, with Pepe and Willian shifting laterally into space between the lines. Pepe and Smith Rowe combine to bypass Ndidi and to set Smith Rowe ahead of the back four before he slides the ball to Willian. Castagna steps to Willian when he receives the ball and drops it back to Pepe, holding his position ahead of the midfield bank. Pepe slides the ball across Tielemans for Xhaka, who splits Castagna and Ndidi for Willian at the edge of the box, but he scuffs his shot wide of the net. And in the build-up to the free kick that led to Arsenal's equalizer, you have Xhaka stepping into Leicester City's half to pull out Tielemans, and he slides the ball to Lacazette, dropping off the center backs, but focus on Willian dropping away from Castagna into the Ndidi Tielemans gap. Lacazette receives Xhaka's pass ahead of Soyuncu, and he pulls out Ndidi, which leaves Willian free beyond Tielemans. Willian receives the ball back from Lacazette, and he bypasses Ndidi and Tielemans by scooping it back to the Arsenal striker, and Lacazette is able to turn and clip the ball across Barnes for an unmarked Pepe to run at Thomas. That results in another 1v1 for Pepe against Thomas that forces the foul that leads to the equalizer. And in the build-up to the penalty that Arsenal received for the second goal, it's Xhaka bypassing Ricardo's pressure with a pass to Willian, dropping into his own third to receive the ball with Tielemans instantly applying pressure. When Willian receives Xhaka's pass, it's his ability to evade Tielemans' pressure on the half turn that creates space for the Brazilian to carry the ball down the left channel into Leicester's half with Ricardo Pereira out of position. Here you could see Willian taking 3 Leicester players out of the game with a pass to an unmarked Odegaard, which leaves Pepe in a 1v1 situation with Lacazette likely to occupy Soyuncu. Meanwhile, when we look to Arsenal's right-hand side, while Pepe was often always involved in the end of the moves, it was Lacazette's movement to drag away the center backs that allowed Pepe to get into those high quality positions. There was the time where David Luiz punted the ball into the right channel that resulted in Lacazette running across Soyuncu to lead an Arsenal break, while an unmarked Smith Rowe joined the attack and Pepe already sprinted beyond Thomas. When Lacazette receives the ball in the right channel, he's approached by the covering Evans, with Smith Rowe and Pepe as potential options as Thomas failed to recover his position. Lacazette opts to drop the ball off to Pepe, which forces Soyuncu to step towards the ball, and it gives Smith Rowe space to exploit in right half space. As you can see here, Smith Rowe receives the ball in a good position to slide it across Ricardo for a Willian tap-in, but he hesitates and opts for a pullback that Castagna clears for a corner. In the build-up to Arsenal's third goal, it's Lacazette holding off pressure from Evans, Ndidi, and Albrighton when Xhaka side foots a looping ball forward. While Lacazette spins away from Evans, it's Xhaka who steps into the loose ball to ignite Arsenal's break following great work from the striker. Lacazette's work results in Xhaka sliding the ball to Pepe in the right channel to run at Ricardo Pereira, which creates a 4v3 break with Odegaard, Cedric, and Willian joining the attack. And if we look to one final example, it's Thomas Partey sliding the ball across Ndidi for Lacazette, dropping into his own half to drag out the center back, and he lays the ball off to an unmarked Cedric, and once again you could see Pepe looking to break into space as Ricardo Pereira is caught stop ball watching. Cedric receives Lacazette's layoff and he locates vacant space down the right channel for Pepe to carry the ball into as Ricardo Pereira attempts to shift across for cover. Pepe does well to await the overlapping run from Odegaard to place the ball onto his left foot to exploit the gap between Ndidi and Ricardo Pereira for Cedric's late run into the Leicester City penalty area that he fails to convert as Amarte clears it. Hi everybody, thanks for watching and subscribe here for your latest tactical analysis and daily commentary on the InnerViews show. And if that wasn't enough, don't forget you could find more organic, unfiltered soccer/football analysis on the InnerViews podcast, the best soccer/football podcast in the world, available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and any Android apps on your Android devices.